Greetings everyone, Barrett here with Hammerhead Model Making. We are back with another 5-minute review. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Zoukei-Mura F-4C Phantom in 1/48 scale. And Zoukei-Mura has made quite a name for itself with its line of F4 Phantoms. They've done multiple different variants and versions. This is my very first time ever looking at a Zoukei-Mura kit. I've heard great things about them, so definitely want to dive into this one head first. And overall, the kit does not disappoint. The surface detail is extremely nice. It's kind of just the right balance between, crisp and sharp recessed panel lines and detailing, but it's not super deep and trench-like. It strikes the right balance, in my opinion. If I had to note one thing about the surface of the plastic is it almost has a bit of a grainy texture to look at. Touching it feels very smooth, but it just looks like it might have a bit of a grainy texture. So I'm not sure if that translates when you start going through primer and paint, but that was just something I observed in this particular boxing of the kit. Overall, it looks like the construction of the kit is very traditional. If you're familiar with like the Hasegawa family of Phantoms, this is going to have some similarities. The breakdown of the parts does seem rather straightforward and logical, though. It does have a separate spine part. That's that long, skinny part there on the top, which is kind of nice because it helps avoid a really annoying seam line right there on the top. You do get a lot of really delicate parts for the cockpit. From what I can see from the instructions and stuff and the kit parts, the cockpit is really nice. The burner cans, they look pretty good. They look a little thick and chunky, but still detail-wise, they look really nice. The ejection seats are, multiple parts, lots of small parts going into the ejection seats, and the cockpit in general just looks extremely well detailed and out of the box. What's interesting there, if you notice on that sprue there that you've actually got the slime light parts on there as like a separate part, which is interesting. You do get 2 full engines for this kit. They are quite simple, but nevertheless, it is an interesting and unique way of doing the kit, and it's full all the way through. You get intake to exhaust all as like one unit basically. It looks really nice. You get the first stage compressors, you get the flame holder for the afterburner. You do get different style of nozzle. It's a later style of nozzle, I believe, but I would assume that's for different variants of the kit and not for this one, and not for this one specifically. But I imagine with all the different variants they've released, they have a lot of carryover between sprues and whatnot. The splitter plates look really nice, and all the little air vent detail is very well represented there. It looks top notch. Rest of the parts all look nice. Nose cone, leading edge of the wings are a separate piece, so again, you get to avoid sanding seams there. I did note that there are a few ejector pin marks on the speed brakes, for example, and the wheel well covers. I believe there's also some very faint ejector pin marks on the interiors of the intakes and the inner intake, shrouds themselves, so just be aware. You do get a pretty full set of air-to-air weaponry. You get 2 matched pairs of sprues. You get 2 drop tanks for the wings. You get different AIM-9 variants, different AIM-7 variants. You do not get any ground ordnance, though. Just be aware. You get boarding ladders for the crew, which is always a nice touch. That kind of thing in my book is top-notch. Clear parts look spectacular. You get a closed canopy set and an open canopy set, which is always nice, just to have the option to do either or. Very crystal clear, very little distortion, nice details on the canopy framing. So yeah, definitely high marks on the clear parts, plus you get HUD pieces and things like that, and no seam lines on the clear parts whatsoever. So yeah, very, very nice looking clear parts. You do get some wheels, specifically weighted wheels here, which look really nice. These come in the kit. Decals are really nice. They are printed by Cartograph, and you get the full set of stencils. You get some cockpit decals, which are they're pretty basic, and then finally you get the very large checkerboard tail artwork. But what is nice is they do provide separate decals for the emblems and the tail number, so that if you want to paint the checkerboard separately, you can do that and still have decals to apply. So top notch and great design there. Going through the instructions, the instructions are fine. They're well detailed as far as I can tell. They look correct and accurate. They're just really busy and cluttered. There's a lot of like text. There's a lot of like sub assembly parts within a step. So you really do need to pay a little extra attention when following the instructions, just because they are a bit difficult to read at times, to follow, but they will get you there. And in the end, they will do their job correctly. You do get some optional things, flying, control surfaces, weapons, things like that. So again, that's always nice. You can position the horizontal stabilizers, but you have to use different parts depending on how you want to position them. They don't just swivel and move on their own. Just be aware. Installation guide for all the weapons, parts breakdown, so rather thorough and complete set. And then finally you get your markings. You only get one set of markings in this, but it's a very nice, attractive set of markings. So yeah, the kit looks like a top-notch kit, and definitely one that I want to try and get on the workbench at some point. I don't know if it'll necessarily be the F-4C like in this kit, but some variant of the Zoukei-Mura F-4 I would definitely like to get on the workbench. Huge shout out to MRS Hobby Shop for letting me take a crack at this kit, and you can check them out at mrshobby.com. And then finally, a massive shout out to my patrons for supporting this channel. Thank you, everyone. See you on the next video. Bye.